Hello, Internet. This past week, my social media has been blowing up with James Damore's diversity memo at Google, and everybody's been weighing in with their countless different opinions. While there's a lot that I don't agree with Damore about, there is one thing he said that I totally agree with. We need to be a lot better at escaping our ideological echo chambers. If you haven't heard about it, Damore is a former Google employee who wrote an internal memo questioning Google's diversity programs and the assumptions and information that they're based on. One of his central arguments is that the lack of women in leadership and tech, and the gender wage gap generally, is caused primarily by biological influences instead of systemic sexism, though he has since acknowledged that bias, sexism, and racism are a factor. He suggests that instead of trying to even out the number of men and women in tech, we should instead be putting people with their biological traits help them to succeed the best. He also suggests that many of Google's diversity programs actually perpetuate the sexism and racism that they're intended to prevent. And also that a lot of managers and hiring staff frequently discriminate against highly qualified individuals just because they're white men. Personally, I don't agree with a lot of Damore's conclusions. But to his credit, the memo is perfectly polite. I mean, my biggest complaints with the memo are that he doesn't really acknowledge any contradictory evidence, and instead implies that it's systemic bias in the humanities that produces that contradictory research in the first place, instead of acknowledging that he could be wrong. Regardless, I don't think he should have gotten fired for writing the memo. But back to echo chambers. In one section, he points out the dangers of allowing ideological echo chambers to control our companies and societies. And he's very right. We need liberal and conservative voices to be heard in society, or we will stagnate or dissolve. As individuals, we need that just as badly to live full and balanced lives. But it can be so hard when the people we disagree with seem to be blind, ignorant, or downright cruel. No one wants that kind of negativity in their life. So we pull back. Little by little. But eventually we're surrounded by people that will only ever tell us what we're already thinking. The problem is, we can never fully escape from the people we disagree with. Only instead of a friend or a family member that we love, it's a stranger we don't know anything about. So instead of a little empathy, maybe a pause to try and see it from their point of view, we immediately get defensive and lash out, and the world's a darker place. So what do we do about it? How do we prevent it? It may seem counterintuitive, but the best way to escape our echo chambers without getting totally depressed in the process is to make a friend who has totally different views than we do. The key point is a friend. Don't try and have a conversation with everyone on the internet who disagrees with you. That'll never work. And also don't try and befriend a whole group of people that have totally different views from you, because that won't work either. But one friend, someone you can really get to know, to love and respect, is someone you can listen to without getting defensive. When their opinions or beliefs challenge your worldview, you'll understand why they feel the way they do. Instead of automatically assuming the worst about them, you'll actually be forced to think about why you feel the way you do. Sometimes it will change the way you view things, but often it'll just provide context. While I still feel strongly about universal healthcare and respecting and supporting the minorities crucial to my country's diversity, I recognize that my wife's chronic illness and my personal experiences with racism contribute heavily to my worldview, and there are situations and people for whom those issues don't matter or are viewed very differently, and I have no right to assume my opinions are correct. Thank you very much for watching. If you're interested in reading that memo, I've linked it down in the doobly-doo, and as always, leave your thoughts in the comments below and subscribe. I'll see you next time.